In my last life, that snake Jake stole my chance to confess, became my girlfriend's guy best friend, and spent the rest of his life making me miserable. Now that I've been reborn at the very moment of that confession, he's trying the same old trick. I just smiled and shoved him toward the campus bell. Go for it, man. If you love her, tell her. I'm backing you up. The tables have turned. Now it's my turn to be the guy best friend. Ethan, did you have something you wanted to say to me? Under the sycamore trees outside the campus library, Sophie Bennett looked like a painting in her white sundress. Her head was bowed, fingers nervously twisting the hem of her skirt. The golden hour light caught the flush on her cheeks, and her long lashes fluttered. Looking at her, my heart hammered against my ribs, an uncontrollable, instinctive reaction. This was it, the exact same scene. In my previous life, I'd gathered 3 years' worth of college courage to ask her here, ready to give her the first real confession of my life. But a split second before I could open my mouth, a figure burst from the shadows. Sophie, I love you. I've loved you for so long. It was Jake Foster, my best friend. He was panting, face beet red, clutching a bouquet of roses that looked like they'd been through a blender. Back then, I felt like I'd been hit by lightning. I just stood there, paralyzed. Sophie was just as stunned, caught completely off guard by the sudden intrusion. The rest of the story was a train wreck. Sophie rejected Jake and chose me. But in her heart, she always carried a sliver of guilt, believing Jake had sacrificed his happiness for ours. Because of that, Jake naturally slid into the role of her guy best friend. That title became the nightmare of my life. He'd call her away in the middle of our dates because he was feeling down and needed someone to talk to. He'd offer helpful advice when Sophie was picking out my birthday gifts, ensuring the presents were things I absolutely hated. He'd even text her late at night. Sophie, you awake? I had a nightmare. I am scared. And every time I expressed my frustration, Sophie would look at me with those wide, innocent eyes. Ethan, don't be so petty. Jake is just my best friend. He treats you like a brother. How can you think such terrible things about him? I was the clown in their play, tortured by their pure friendship, until I was on the verge of a breakdown. It finally ended when we had a screaming match over Jake getting into a minor car accident. Sophie cried, telling me how disappointed she was, then drove through a rainstorm to stay by his hospital bed all night. On my way to find her, a truck lost control and sent me flying. In the final moments, as my consciousness faded, I could have sworn I saw Jake standing by the hospital entrance with a triumphant smirk on his face. Ethan, Sophie's voice pulled me back from the freezing grip of those memories. I took a deep breath, crushing the hatred rising in my chest. I was back. I was really back. I was at the very crossroads where the tragedy began. I looked at the shy expectation in Sophie's eyes, then caught a glimpse of the figure behind the large oak tree nearby, the one already twitching, ready to lunge out. I smiled. I actually laughed. Just as Jake prepared to burst out and steal the moment like he had before, I moved. I didn't confess. Instead, I spun around, grabbed Jake by the arm as he lunged, and used his own momentum to shove him directly into Sophie's arms. Thump! Jake wasn't expecting the assist. He slammed right into Sophie, and they both let out a startled yelp. Sophie stumbled back a few steps, her face turning a deep shade of crimson. Jake was utterly bewildered, still clutching his mangled roses, his brain short-circuiting because the script had suddenly changed. The silence was deafening. I clapped my hands, putting on my most sincere grin to break the tension. Brother, if you love her, go for it. I stepped forward and slapped Jake on the shoulder with enough force to make him wince. I've been watching you hesitate all day, man. I knew you had a crush on our Sophie for ages. I turned to Sophie, whose expression was a mix of shock and confusion. My smile widened. Sophie, look at this guy. He was so nervous about asking you out, he was practically shaking. You two? Prom king and queen. A total match. Jake's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He couldn't get a single word out. His brain was mush. Ethan was supposed to confess. Why is he helping me? Sophie was dazed. She looked at the rigid Jake in her personal space, then at my "you guys are so cute" expression. She whispered, Ethan, aren't you? Me? I laughed, waving a hand dismissively. I'm just the wingman. I'm here to make sure my best friend gets the girl. Aren't we the Three Musketeers? My brother's happiness is my happiness. I nudged Jake hard. What are you waiting for? The flowers? The speech? Do it. Snapped out of his daze by the nudge, Jake mechanically held out the roses and stammered through his prepared lines. Sophie, I love you. Sophie's face burned. She looked at me, her eyes filled with frantic questions. I gave her a "don't worry about me" look and started a chant. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. A few passing students caught on and joined in. Say yes. Just do it. Under the pressure of the cheering crowd and the confusion of the moment, Sophie's defenses crumbled. She bit her lip, looked down, and took the flowers from Jake. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It was done. Jake let out a shout of joy and pulled Sophie into a hug. The surrounding crowd burst into whistles and applause. Standing in the center of the cheering circle, I watched them embrace. My smile was perfectly genuine, but my blood was singing with a cold, sharp satisfaction. Hey, Jake, didn't see that coming, did you? The game has changed. In a last life, you were the guy best friend who made my life a living hell. This time, it's my turn. I pulled out my phone and dialed Sophie's number. In the middle of the noisy celebration, her ringtone cut through the air. She pulled away from Jake, flustered, and checked her screen. She looked at me, confused. Ethan, why are you calling me? I put on my best distressed and sobbing voice and shouted into the phone. Sophie, where are you? You have to help me. I just got caught by Dean Hardcastle. He says he's going to expel me for being in the restricted wing. I'm in so much trouble. Sophie let out a gasp. What? Expelled. Ethan, stay calm. Where are you? I'm coming right now. By the south entrance. He's threatening to call my parents. I kept my voice trembling, playing the part of a terrified college student to perfection. I'll be right there. Sophie hung up, her face pale with worry. Jake, still riding the high of his successful confession, saw her panicked look. Sophie, what's wrong? It's Ethan. The dean caught him in the restricted area, and he's threatening expulsion. I have to go see what's happening. Sophie turned to run. Jake's smile froze. What? This was literally the first minute of them being officially together. He hadn't even held her hand for more than a second. I'll go with you. No, don't. You're too high profile, and if the dean sees us both, it'll just make it look like we were all up to something. I'll handle it. Go back to the dorms. I'll text you. Sophie's tone left no room for argument. She knew the dragon lady, Dean Hardcastle, all too well. If Jake showed up, it would just turn a one-person problem into a group violation. Without looking back, she shoved the roses back into Jake's arms and sprinted toward the south entrance. Jake was left standing there, clutching the wilting bouquet, alone in the cooling evening breeze. I hung up my phone, the smirk on my face impossible to hide. God, that felt good. Better than winning the lottery. I strolled leisurely toward the south entrance, found a boba shop, and sat down. I ordered a mango pomelo sago with extra sugar. While sipping through the thick straw, I watched Sophie through the window as she paced frantically near the gate, looking like a headless chicken. She called me several times. I let it ring. I wanted her to stew in that anxiety. This was just the appetizer. In my last life, Jake used this exact move on my birthday. He called Sophie away from my dinner party, claiming he'd gotten into a drunken bar fight and was bleeding out. Sophie had dropped everything, leaving me and a table full of friends, and ran to him. Now, Jake could taste what that felt like. When I saw Sophie was about to start crying from the stress, I decided the timing was right. I picked up the next call. Ethan, where are you? I don't see the dean anywhere. Sophie's voice was breaking. I put on a sleepy, groggy tone. Huh? Sophie? What dean? Oh, that I yawned. It was a misunderstanding. I was just dozing off on a bench, and the dean thought I was sick or something. She checked on me and then let me go. I was so tired I just went back to my dorm to sleep. Sorry, did I wake you? There was silence on the other end. A long, dead silence. I could practically see the expression on Sophie's face, swinging from sheer terror to utter bewilderment to, are you kidding me? After a few seconds, she gritted out. Went back to your dorm. Yeah, I'm wiped out. Look, I'm gonna crash. Talk to you tomorrow. Night. I hung up crisp and clean. Then I leaned back against a boba shop's sofa and shook with silent laughter. Across campus, Jake was pacing his room like a caged animal. He kept checking his phone, then walking out to the balcony to scan the sidewalk for Sophie. This was their first night. It was supposed to be a milestone. His plan had been perfect. Walk her back to her dorm, text her sweet nothings until they both fell asleep, and wake up in a romantic haze. Instead, Ethan's emergency had nuked the whole evening. He texted Sophie. No reply. He called. Busy signal. The minutes ticked by. 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 11 o'clock curfew. Sophie still wasn't back. Jake's heart sank, replaced by a cold, familiar dread. Finally, at 11:30, Sophie trudged back to the girls' dorm, looking exhausted. Jake was waiting there, charging toward her. Sophie, you're back. Is Ethan okay? What happened? He tried to sound concerned. Sophie looked at him, her expression drained. She shook her head. He's fine. It was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Jake blinked. Then why were you out there so long? His phone died. I spent 2 hours looking for him. Sophie made up a lie on the spot. She couldn't admit she'd stood at the gate like an idiot in the cold for 2 hours for nothing. Oh, well, as long as he's okay. Jake felt a wave of relief, then tentatively reached out to take her hand. So, about us. Sophie instinctively stepped back, avoiding his touch. Her mind was a mess, and she was too tired for romance. I'm exhausted, Jake. I just want to sleep, she said softly. Jake's hand hung awkwardly in the air. Right? Okay, get some rest. Good night. Night. Sophie didn't look back as she headed inside. Jake stood alone in the empty courtyard. The roses he'd pampered all evening were already starting to brown at the edges. He realized that this night, the one that was supposed to be the best of his life, had been pretty miserable, and it was all because of Ethan. He pulled out his phone and opened our chat, typing furiously. Ethan, what the hell was that tonight? He paused, thinking it sounded too aggressive. He deleted it and tried again. Hey man, you okay? Sophie was really worried. He waited for a reply. It never came. I'd already muted him. Meanwhile, using a burner account, I sent a friend request to Sophie. The message attached was, Hey Sophie, I'm one of Ethan's floormates. He's totally crashed out of my room after having a few too many drinks. His phone died, so I figured I'd let you know he's safe so you don't worry. The next morning, I walked into the lecture hall feeling like $1,000,000. Jake, sporting 2 massive dark circles under his eyes, spotted me and lunged. Ethan, where the hell were you last night? Why didn't you answer my texts? I blinked innocently. Huh, last night? Man, I had a few drinks and totally blacked out. My buddy hauled me back to the dorms. Drinks? Jake's voice went up an octave. You told Sophie you were caught by the dean. The dean? I scratched my head, looking genuinely puzzled. Did I? I don't remember that at all. Man, I must have been hammered. Was I dreaming? My clueless and confused routine was like a punch landing on a cloud. Jake had an entire arsenal of accusations ready, and now he had nowhere to fire them. Was he really just that drunk? But Sophie said. Just then, Sophie entered the room. She looked at me with a complicated expression, but eventually walked over. Ethan, are you okay? You scared me to death last night. I immediately switched to a look of profound guilt, bowing my head. Sophie, I am so sorry. I totally blacked out. My roommate told me I called you. I don't remember a thing. I feel terrible for dragging you into my mess. Please forgive me. I was the picture of sincerity. Seeing me so apologetic, Sophie's irritation evaporated. She wasn't the type to hold a grudge, and in her mind, Ethan had probably only gotten drunk because he was sad about her and Jake getting together. The guilt hit her hard. It's okay. Just don't drink that much again. It's not good for you, she said gently. I promise. I nodded vigorously. Then, changing the subject, I looked at Jake and grinned. I was just so hyped that my best friend finally got the girl. Come on, man. Lunch is on me today. 3rd floor cafeteria. Order whatever you want. I threw an arm around Jake's shoulder, playing the part of the ultimate bro. Jake was completely thrown. He felt like a petty jerk for being suspicious, while Ethan seemed like the hero who'd sacrificed his own feelings and gotten wasted just to celebrate his friend's happiness. Sophie smiled, seeing our deep bond. All right, you two settle down. Class is starting. With one smooth move, I had neutralized a potential trust crisis. Jake's suspicion was buried, but he still felt like something was off. At lunch, I specifically ordered steamed sea bass. I carefully picked out the tenderest piece from the belly and placed it in Sophie's bowl. Sophie, eat up. You need the brain food for the GREs next week. Sophie smiled. Thanks, Ethan. Jake's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He remembered Sophie telling him she hated fish because she'd choked on a bone as a kid, and it traumatized her. Ethan had known her for 3 years. How could he not know that? He was about to say something when he saw Sophie naturally pick up the fish, carefully flick away a tiny bone, and eat it. Jake's pupils dilated. Since when does she eat fish? I acted like I didn't notice his shock and added a spoonful of stir-fried bell peppers to her plate. Try these too. The cafeteria's specialty. Jake's face paled further. Sophie hated bell peppers too. But a second later, Sophie ate the peppers without a word, even smiling at me. Yeah, these are actually really good. Jake was reeling. Was she just eating this stuff to be polite to Ethan? Yeah, that's it. Sophie is just too nice to turn him down. Feeling a bit more confident, he picked up a piece of sweet and sour pork, something he knew she loved, and put on her plate. Here, Sophie. You love sweet stuff, right? He said softly. Sophie looked at the pork and a tiny, almost imperceptible frown touched her brow. I let out a small snort of laughter. They both looked at me. Sorry, I said, waving it off like it was nothing. I just remembered something. I know Sophie used to love sweets, But didn't the campus clinic tell her to cut back on sugar and fried food after her last physical? People's tastes change, I guess. I gave Jake a look of pure sympathy. Hell, loser. You don't even know your own girlfriend's health stats. Last time, you were the one mocking me with this stuff. Now, have it back. Jake's face turned the color of a beet. Every word felt like a slap. Sophie looked uncomfortable, gave him a strained smile, and finished the peppers I gave her. She didn't touch the pork. Lunch was miserable for Jake. He felt like a third wheel on his own date. I was the one who actually knew what was going on in Sophie's life. After lunch, I walked between them, arms around both their shoulders. Come on, I'll walk you guys back. Jake wanted to shove my arm off, but he couldn't do it in front of Sophie. He just endured it. At the dorms, I turned to Sophie. Hey, those GRE prep materials you have are a bit outdated. How about the new 2024 edition? Want me to drop them off tonight? Really? That would be amazing. Thanks, Ethan. Sophie beamed. Don't mention it. We're best friends, right? I said pointedly. I gave Jake a wink and walked away with a swagger. Jake looked like he wanted to grind his teeth into dust. Best friends. He was starting to loathe that phrase. Sophie, he said, trying to salvage the day. Let's go see that new sci-fi blockbuster tonight. My treat. Sophie looked hesitant. But Ethan is bringing over those prep books, and I really need to start memorizing vocab. Jake's heart sank again. Ethan. The guy was like a ghost that wouldn't stop haunting him. At 7 p.m., I showed up at the girls' dorm with a heavy stack of prep books. Here you go, Sophie. Wow, this is a lot. Thank you so much, Ethan. No problem, I smiled. Actually, some of these practice tests are pretty brutal. If you want, we could find a spot, and I could go over the logic sections with you. Sophie's eyes lit up. Could you? Where should we go? The library's tech lounge. It's quiet, and they have the software we need. Perfect. We headed off to the library, completely ignoring Jake, who was standing a few yards away clutching 2 movie tickets, his eyes burning a hole in my back. It felt incredible. Every cell in my body was screaming with joy. In my last life, he'd used the tutoring excuse 1,000 times to pull Sophie away from me. I remember one time we were actually in the theater, popcorn and sodas in hand, waiting for the trailers to start. He'd called her, claiming he had a major academic crisis and needed her help immediately. Sophie had left me there, alone in the dark, watching a romantic movie by myself. The humiliation of that night was still fresh. Now it was his turn. Sophie and I walked to the library, the evening air cool and the atmosphere perfect. Ethan, you're so good to me, Sophie sighed. You've done so much for me and Jake. I felt a cold sneer in my heart, but my face was the picture of bro-code nobility. Don't be silly. We're a trio. If you and Jake are happy, I'm happy. If he ever treats you wrong, you tell me. I'll be the first one to knock some sense into him. Sophie laughed, looking genuinely touched. In the tech lounge, we found a corner spot. We put on headphones, working through the listening and logic sections. During a break, Sophie's phone buzzed. It was Jake. She hesitated, then declined the call. A string of texts popped up. Jake, Sophie, where are you? The movie is starting. Jake, why aren't you picking up? Jake, are you with Ethan? Sophie frowned and typed back. I'm studying with Ethan. I can't make the movie. Go ahead without me. Jake called again immediately. Sophie declined it again and switched her phone to silent. She looked at me apologetically. Sorry, he's being a bit much. I smiled understandingly. It's okay. Boyfriend stuff. They get clingy. Unlike me, just a lone wolf, burying my sorrows in textbooks. I let out a mock lonely sigh. The guilt in Sophie's eyes spiked. She was convinced Ethan was throwing himself into his studies because he was heartbroken about her and Jake. Compared to Ethan's sacrifice, Jake's constant pestering over a movie seemed incredibly immature. Don't say that. You're a great guy, Ethan. You'll find someone 100 times better than me. I hope so, I whispered, adding a hint of bitterness to my voice. That did it. Sophie's heart completely melted. She looked at me with pure pity and affection. For the next hour, she didn't look at her phone once. Meanwhile, Jake was losing his mind at the theater. He stood by the entrance, clutching the useless tickets, his veins popping. Ethan again, studying. What a load of crap. He stormed over to the library and spotted us through the glass wall of the tech lounge. We were leaning in close, looking at the same screen, whispering. From his angle, we looked like a couple on a date. A white-hot rage flared in Jake's chest. He felt like his head was glowing green. He whipped out his phone and snapped a photo, then sent it to Sophie. What are you doing? The string of exclamation points radiated his fury. Sophie's phone lit up on the table. When she saw the photo and the message, her face dropped. She looked up and saw Jake's distorted, angry face through the glass. I followed her gaze, laughing internally while putting on a shocked face. Wait, is that Jake? What's he doing here? I stood up and waved enthusiastically. Hey, man, you're just in time. Come join us. 3 heads are better than 2. Jake's face was like thunder. Seeing my innocent smile made him feel like he was punching a brick wall. He wanted to storm in and grab my collar, but he couldn't. Everything I was doing was helpful. I was helping her study. I was invested in their future. If he made a scene, he'd just look like a controlling, insecure jerk. Jake clenched his fists so hard his nails drew blood. He watched the two of us, the picture of academic peace. And for the first time, he wondered if his plan to confess first was actually working out the way he wanted. Who was the wingman here? The library standoff ended with Jake's retreat. He stood outside for 10 minutes, but never dared to come in. Sophie went out to talk to him for a bit, and when she came back, her eyes were puffy. They'd argued. I checked in with concern. What happened? Did you guys fight? Sophie looked down. Yeah. He doesn't think I should be here with you this late. Oh, come on. I'll wave it off. He's just jealous. It means he cares. Don't let it get to you. I'll talk to him later and clear the air. The more understanding I was, the more the scale tipped in my favor. She saw Jake as a petty child and me as the mature, selfless friend. No, she shook her head. It's my problem. I'll handle him. I nodded and said considerately, maybe we should call a night. Go back and talk to him. I don't want to be the reason you guys have problems. Thanks, Ethan. Truly. As I watch her walk away, my smile turned cold. Talk to him? In my last life, I thought talking solved things. But every talk ended with me apologizing. Every argument ended with Sophie saying, why can't you just be more understanding of Jake? To hell with understanding. This time, I was going to make Jake feel what it was like to be the one who was misunderstood. I pulled out my phone and created a new group chat. The study trio? Ethan and everyone, hey guys, I spent all night putting together this GRE high-frequency vocab list. One for each of you. No need to thank me. Sophie replied instantly. Ethan, you are the best. 3 a while later, Jake chimed in reluctantly. Thanks. I smiled and kept typing. Ethan, by the way, Sophie, do you have morning classes tomorrow? Want to do some morning vocab review? Best time to memorize. Sophie, yes. What time? Where? Ethan, 6:30 a.m. at the Knoll. See you there. Sophie, ugh. I intentionally tagged Jake. Ethan had Jake you coming, man. Let's all work hard for Sophie's future. On the other end of the screen, Jake nearly crushed his phone. The Knoll. 6:30 a.m. Morning review. The Knoll was the most famous romantic spot on campus. He and Sophie hadn't even been there yet. And Ethan was asking her to go there for morning review and asking him to join? If he said no, he looked like he didn't care about her grades. If he said yes, he had to drag his ass out of bed at 6 a.m. to play third wheel to their educational date. It was a lose-lose situation. Jake stewed for minutes before typing 2 humiliating words. Jake, can't make it. Ethan, come on, man. The more the merrier. It'll be weird if it's just me and Sophie alone, right? Seeing the words, me and Sophie alone, sent Jake's blood pressure through the roof. You know it's weird? He typed furiously, Ethan, what are you playing at? Before he could hit send, Sophie's message popped up. Sophie, Jake, why are you being like this to Ethan? He's just trying to help. If you don't want to support me, fine, but don't hold me back. Jake froze. It was only the second day. 2 days. And Sophie was already attacking him because of Ethan. The panic set in. He deleted his angry message and tried again. Jake, I didn't mean that. I'm not a morning person. Ethan, I get it, man. Young guys, late nights. I'm sure you're tired. Don't worry. Sophie and I will carry the academic load for you. I added a flexing emoji. The late nights comment was a needle to Jake's eye. He hadn't even touched Sophie's hand last night. There was no exercise involved. Ethan was mocking him, and the best part was that Sophie was too naive to see it. She thought I was being caring. Sophie, Ethan, ignore him. Jake, you just sleeping? I'll go with Ethan. Jake stared at the screen, his insides turning to ice. He had a terrifying premonition. If it didn't go tomorrow, it was over. He gritted his teeth and typed, I'll be there. Ethan, that's the spirit. See you at 6:30. I tossed my phone aside and rolled around on my bed, laughing. The game is just getting started, Jake. 6:20 a.m. The Knoll. I arrived yawning and saw Sophie in her workout gear, ponytail bobbing, looking fresh. Next to her, Jake looked like a wilted piece of celery. Massive eye bags, skin like parchment, yawning every 5 seconds. Morning, I chirped. Morning, Ethan. Sophie smiled. Jake grunted something that might have been a greeting. I pulled out 2 breakfast sandwiches and 2 cartons of milk. Brought you guys breakfast. I gave Sophie her favorite, Chipotle chicken. I gave Jake the one I knew he hated, tuna salad. Wow, Ethan, you're so thoughtful. Sophie beamed. Jake looked at the tuna sandwich, and his face turned green. The smell of fish at 6:30 a.m. on an empty, Sleep-deprived stomach was enough to make him gag. Something wrong? Not your favorite? I asked innocently. No, it's fine. Jake forced a smile that looked like a grimace. He didn't dare complain in front of Sophie, so he started shoving it into his mouth like it was medicine. I watched him struggle, my heart full of joy. Remember all those times you fed me your leftovers in the last life? Enjoy the tuna, buddy. We started the review. I sat right next to Sophie, books open, abandoned, abundant. Jake sat on the other side, looking like a ghost. His eyes kept fluttering shut, his head nodding. At one point, a stray lock of hair blew across Sophie's face and got caught on her lip. She went to brush it away, but I was faster. I reached out naturally and tucked the strand behind her ear. My fingers brushed her earlobe, soft and warm. Sophie froze. A blush crept up her neck, and her heart skipped. She looked at me, but I was already back to the book, looking completely focused, as if the gesture had been purely unconscious. She cleared her throat, trying to refocus, but her mind was spinning. Jake, who had been fighting to stay awake, saw the whole thing. The rage hit him like a lightning bolt. Ethan had just touched her ear, a spot Jake hadn't even gotten close to yet. Ethan, what the hell? Jake surged to his feet, pointing a finger at me. We both jumped. I looked up bewildered. What? What's wrong? You touched her. Jake's lip was trembling. Touched her? I looked even more confused. I turned to Sophie. Did I touch you? Sophie's face was beet red. She looked at the furious Jake, then at innocent me. He was just fixing my hair, Jake. Don't make a scene. Hair? Jake scoffed. Do you need to stroke her ear to fix her hair? Sophie's expression hardened. Jake, what is wrong with you? Ethan wasn't even looking. He was just being helpful. I'm the one being weird. Jake was vibrating with fury. He was practically in your lap. Are you blind or just pretending? You. Sophie's eyes welled up. You are being completely unreasonable. As they spiraled into an argument, I stepped in as the peacemaker. I grabbed Jake's arm, looking deeply apologetic. Man, I'm so sorry. I was so focused on the vocab, I didn't even think. I swear, it was an accident. I turned to Sophie. Sophie, don't be mad at him. He's just crazy about you. He's protective. I was the perfect mediator. But to Jake, my words were pure poison. Focused on vocab? You're focused on my girl. He shoved my hand away. Ethan, stay the hell away from her. The air turned to ice. Sophie looked at Jake with pure disbelief. She couldn't believe he'd talk like that to their mutual friend. The smile left my face, replaced by a look of deep hurt. Jake, how could you say that? We're brothers. I'm just trying to help her study. What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. I'm the one who messed up. Sophie snapped. She was crying now. I messed up by letting you be in this position. I messed up by saying yes to you, Jake. She turned and ran off, sobbing. It was just me and Jake. Jake stood there, stunned. He'd only meant to warn me, but it had blown up in his face. I walked over to him and let out a long, heavy sigh. I patted his shoulder. Man, you really crossed the line this time. I used the I'm disappointed in you voice. Sophie is a good girl. Your lack of trust is killing her. And how could you doubt me? We grew up together. Every word was a knife in his gut. He looked at my sincere face, his mouth working, but no words came out. What could he say? That I did it on purpose. I'd been flawless. That I had hidden motives? Everything I did was under the banner of helping them. He was trapped in a web, and the more he struggled, the tighter it got. Sigh. I sighed again, pulling a water bottle from my bag and opening it for him. Cool off. Go apologize to her. Girls need to be pampered. Jake looked at the water I was offering, then at my holier-than-thou face. A sudden, violent surge of pressure hit his chest. Puffed. A spray of blood erupted from his mouth. He actually spit up blood, right there in front of me, like a scene out of drama, and then his eyes rolled back and he hit the grass, out cold. I was genuinely shocked. Holy crap. I wanted to mess with him, not kill him. Is his stress tolerance really that low? Change of plans. Hospital time. I whipped out my phone and dialed 911, my voice frantic. Then I called Sophie. Sophie, something's wrong. Come quick. Jake, he just collapsed. He's spitting up blood. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. Jake was in a bed, hooked up to an 4, his face as white as the sheets. The doctor said it was an acute gastric lining flare-up caused by extreme stress and severe sleep deprivation. He wasn't going to die, but he needed absolute rest. Sophie was sitting by the bed, her eyes red and swollen. She'd clearly been crying for an hour. She looked at the sleeping Jake with a mix of guilt and pity. I stood in the corner, head bowed like a shamed child, silent. The atmosphere was suffocating. Finally, Sophie spoke in a raspy voice. Ethan, I'm sorry. Jake was out of line this morning. I'm apologizing for him. I looked up, my eyes brimming with tears, my voice thick. No, don't apologize. It's my fault. If I hadn't pushed for the morning review, this wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't been so clumsy and touched you, Jake wouldn't have misunderstood. It's all on me. I hurt him. I got worked up, and then, smack, I slapped myself across the face. Hard. Sophie gasped and lunged forward to grab my hands. Ethan, stop. What are you doing? This isn't your fault. How is it not? I shouted, looking broken. You guys are my best friends. And because of me, one is in a hospital bed and the other is crying. What kind of friend am I? I'm a curse. My acting was at its peak. Regret, self-loathing, agony, all perfectly masked. Sophie was completely undone. She held my hands, her own tears falling again. No, you're not. You're the best friend we have. We've seen everything you've done for us. This was an accident. Nobody wanted this. The more she comforted me, the harder I sobbed. No, it's my fault. Sophie, just let me be alone for a bit. I need to think. I broke away from her and stumbled out of the room, looking like a man whose world had ended. Once I hit the corner of the hallway, I leaned against the cold wall and slid down to the floor. Then, I couldn't hold it back anymore. I laughed. God, that was worth the slap. In one move, I had cleared myself of all blame and cemented my image in Sophie's mind as a noble friend who would rather hurt himself than his friends. Jake, what do you have? You have Sophie's guilt because you got sick. I have her heart because I sacrificed my pride for you. Back in the room, Sophie looked at Jake, then thought about my broken expression. Her mind was a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. She felt like she owed both of us, but especially me. I'd done nothing wrong, yet I was taking all the punishment. Just then, Jake's eyelids fluttered. Water, he croaked. You're awake. Sophie rushed to pour him a cup, helping him sit up and sip. As the water cleared his throat, the memories of the morning came back. The gnome, my smirk, Sophie's anger. The rage flared up again. Where's Ethan? He hissed. He just left. He has the nerve to be here. Jake's heart rate monitor started beeping faster. Sophie, don't let him trick you. He's doing this on purpose. He's trying to tear us apart. Sophie's face went cold. She couldn't believe that Jake's first thought upon waking up wasn't her, but more accusations against Ethan. Jake, enough, she said sharply. Ethan just slapped himself in front of me because he felt so guilty about you being here. He's blaming himself for everything, and you're still attacking him? Do you want to drive him to the edge? Jake was stunned. He slapped himself? For me? Heh, what a perfect guilt trip play. That snake. He wanted to tell her the truth, but he realized that anything he said now would just make him look more like a villain. The moment he collapsed, he'd lost his standing. He had no leverage left. Sophie, let me explain. Just rest, she said, her voice filled with disappointment. I don't want to fight. She turned and walked out. She needed to find Ethan. She couldn't let him be alone. Jake lay there, staring at the ceiling, his chest aching. He knew Sophie's heart was drifting away, and it was all because of Ethan. A chilling realization hit him. If he hadn't stolen the confession, would I be the one in the bed, and would he be the one comforting her? Sophie found me in the hospital garden. I was sitting on a bench, head down, shoulders shaking slightly, the picture of a kicked puppy. Ethan, she called softly. I panicked, wiping my eyes and forcing a shaky smile. Sophie, is Jake okay? Did he wake up? Sophie saw the red mark on my cheek and felt a pang in her chest. He's awake. He's fine. She sat next to me and handed me a tissue. Stop it. It's not your fault. I took the tissue but didn't use it. I just covered my eyes. How is it not? If I were more mature, if I stayed away from you, Jake wouldn't be like this. Sophie, maybe we should keep our distance for a while. I looked at her with watery eyes. I don't want to cause more fights. Seeing you guys together is enough for me, really. This retreat as an attack move hit Sophie like a sledgehammer. She broke. No, she grabbed my arm. Ethan, you can't think like that. We are best friends. Why should we stop being friends because of a misunderstanding? Jake is the one who needs to change, not you. He's being selfish and paranoid. He doesn't care about your feelings at all. I'm so disappointed in him. Hook, line, and sinker. I sneered internally while looking shocked and worried. Sophie, don't say that about him. He just loves you too much. Don't let this come between you, or I'll never forgive myself. The more I defended Jake, the more Sophie despised him. Stop talking about him, she snapped. Ethan, listen. We are friends. Always. No one changes that. From now on, if you want to study or talk, you just ask. I'm not going to worry about his feelings anymore. This was exactly what I wanted. Jake's collapse hadn't driven us apart. It had given me an official license to be with her whenever I wanted. Jake, can you feel your blood pressure rising yet? Over the next few days, Jake rested in the hospital. Meanwhile, Sophie and I were inseparable. We ate in the cafeteria, studied in the library, and walked the track at night. I played the role of the pure guy best friend perfectly. I memorized her cycle and brought her herbal tea and heating pads. I patiently explained every logic problem she struggled with. I took her for cupcakes when she was stressed. I did everything I'd wanted to do in my last life, everything Jake had blocked me from doing, and every day, I made sure to send Jake kind updates. I'd send him photos of our lunch. Ethan, hey man, the cafeteria has sweet and sour pork today. I'll bring you some when you're out. I'd send videos of Sophie laughing. Ethan, look how happy she is. Don't worry about her. I'm taking good care of her while you recover. I even called him late at night. Hey brother, you asleep? Sophie and I just left the library. The moon is beautiful tonight. Too bad you're stuck inside. On the other end, Jake could only let out heavy, ragged breaths of fury. The doctor said he needed peace, but under my daily mental warfare, his conditions seemed to be getting worse. Finally, after a week, Jake discharged himself against medical advice. He'd lost weight, his eyes were sunken, and he looked like a walking corpse. The first thing he did was find me. He cornered me near the dorms. Ethan, we need to talk. His voice was a gravelly hiss, his eyes like poison daggers. I smiled. Sure, man. What's on your mind? He grabbed my collar and slammed me against the wall. What the hell are you doing? I didn't move. No panic, just a playful smirk. Brother, what's with the hostility? Let's just talk. Don't call me brother. Jake exploded. His eyes were bloodshot. I know you're doing this on purpose. You're getting revenge, aren't you? Looking at his distorted face, I felt a surge of pure, dark joy. He finally figured it out. Too late. My smile vanished. My eyes went cold. I leaned into his ear and whispered a single sentence that only the two of us would understand. Tell me, Jake, how did it feel to watch that romantic movie all by yourself in the dark? Jake's body jerked, as if he'd been electrocuted. His eyes widened, his pupils shrinking to pinpricks. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. You. He pointed a trembling finger at me, unable to form a word. How could I know? Only 3 people in the world knew about that night. Jake, Sophie, and the Ethan from the previous life. A horrifying, impossible thought exploded in his mind. That's right, I said, watching his soul shatter. I leaned in closer, my voice a cruel whisper. I'm back to boom. The revelation hit Jake like a physical blow. The color drained from his face until he was as white as paper. No. Impossible. He stammered, his grip on my collar loosening. It can't be. Why not? I sneered, stepping into his space. If you could come back with your memories, why couldn't I? Did you think that by stealing the first move, you could have it all? Did you think that by crushing me under your boot, you could just enjoy the spoils of war? I have news for you, Jake. My voice was quiet, but every word was a hammer. Every bit of pain, every ounce of humiliation you put me through in the last life, I'm going to pay it back. With interest. Jake stumbled back, eventually tripping over his own feet and hitting the pavement. He looked up at me with pure terror. He realized it now. From the very second we stood under those sycamore trees, he'd been dancing in my palm. My retreat, my blessing, my best friend routine, it was all a massive, intricate trap. I didn't want to help them. I wanted to annihilate him. You're a monster, he whispered. A monster? I laughed, and the sound was hollow. Compared to what you did to me, my methods are nothing. You used Sophie's kindness like a parasite. You destroyed my relationship, my life. And then you stood there and watched me die under the wheels of a truck. Jake, who's the real monster here? I roared the last part. 2 lifetimes of resentment finally boiled over. Jake flinched, unable to meet my eyes. There was no defense. He knew what he'd done. Karma was finally at his door. What do you want? He asked, slumped on the ground, defeated. What do I want? I looked down at him, my gaze freezing. I don't want much. I just want you to feel what it's like to watch the person you love drift away while you're powerless to stop it. I want you to feel what it's like to be abandoned by the whole world. I want you to feel so much regret that you wish you were dead. I turned to walk away, but as I spun around, a familiar figure appeared a few yards away. It was Sophie. She was carrying a thermos, clearly bringing Jake some soup for his recovery. She saw Jake on the ground, looking broken, and she saw my cold back. Ethan? Jake? What happened? She asked, rushing over. I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. Jake, seeing Sophie, grabbed her like she was a life raft. He scrambled up and gripped her shoulders, shouting incoherently. Sophie, it's him. He planned everything. He's a traveler. He came back to get me. Sophie jumped, terrified by his manic state. Jake, what are you talking about? Travelers? Are you still sick? Are you having a breakdown? I'm not crazy. It's true. Ethan, he remembers the other life. He's doing this to break us up. Sophie's brow furrowed, looking at the wild-eyed, Raving Jake, she didn't feel belief. She felt a deep, profound disappointment and a hint of fear. She shoved his hands off and stepped back. Jake, I'm so done with this. Her voice was like ice. You messed up, you won't take responsibility, and now you're making up insane sci-fi stories to slander Ethan. Travelers? Do you think we're in a Netflix show? You're not sick, Jake. You've lost your mind. Her words were the final blow. Jake's last hope withered. He knew that in her eyes, he was just a crazy person making excuses. Everything was going exactly according to my plan. He had lost. Completely. He turned his head and saw me standing a few yards away, watching the spectacle with amused detachment. The look in his eyes shifted from despair to a jagged, suicidal madness. Ethan, I'll kill you. He roared and charged at me like a rabid animal. I didn't move. I didn't even blink, because I knew someone would stop him. Sure enough, a split second before his fist reached my face, a figure stepped between us. Sophie! Jake! Stop it! She screamed, arms spread wide to shield me, her face a mask of horror and rage. Jake's fist stopped an inch from her nose. His hand was shaking, his eyes bloodshot. Move, he snarled. No. Sophie's tears broke through. If you touch him, Jake, we are finished. Forever. Those words were like daggers to Jake's heart. He looked at her in disbelief. She was willing to end everything to protect me? He was her boyfriend. The betrayal and the madness finally snapped his last tether to reality. Fine. 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 He laughed, a high, piercing sound. Sophie, you pushed me to this. He pulled back his fist, and with a sudden, blur-like motion, he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. It was a folding knife. The silver blade caught the sun, glinting with a lethal light. A girl nearby screamed. Sophie's face went ghost white. Fuck it, no. Put it down. What? Jake grinned, stepping forward. If I'm going down, I'm taking this piece of trash with me. Today, Ethan, we're going to hell together. He lunged, the knife aimed straight for my chest. Ethan, watch out. Sophie screamed, and without a second thought, she spun around and threw her body over mine, exposing her back to the blade. My pupils contracted. This was a variable. I'd expected her to push me or try to block him again. I hadn't expected her to use her own body as a human shield. Plans changed, but this works even better. In the fraction of a second before the blade struck, I reacted. I grabbed Sophie, spun her around with my own momentum, and pulled her in my chest, shielding her. At the same time, I lashed out with a kick, catching Jake squarely in the wrist. Clang! The knife skittered across the pavement. The force of the kick sent Jake sprawling backward until he hit the ground hard. It was over in an instant. By the time the crowd realized what had happened, the danger was gone. I held a trembling Sophie in my arms, feeling her heart racing against mine. My gaze drifted over her shoulder to the pathetic figure of Jake on the ground. It's over, Jake. You're done. Campus security and the administration arrived within minutes. A knife attack in broad daylight was as serious as it got. Jake was tackled by security and hauled away to the campus police station. He'd gone from the lucky guy to an expelled criminal in less than 2 weeks. I, meanwhile, was the hero of the hour, the calm, brave friend who had saved the girl. I held the sobbing Sophie and whispered, It's okay. I've got you. You're safe. Sophie looked up at me, her eyes filled with terror, relief, and a very specific kind of longing. I knew that look well. The spark of attraction. I sneered internally. Catching feelings now? Too late. I helped her stand, then immediately created a polite distance between us. My voice was filled with a shaken kind of relief. Thank God you're okay. I'd never have forgiven myself if you got hurt. The way I pulled away made Sophie blink. She looked at me, her mouth opening to say something, but the words died in her throat. The drama ended with Jake being taken away in a police cruiser. He was expelled immediately and eventually sentenced to 6 months for attempted assault with a deadly weapon. His reputation was incinerated. He was no longer a student. He was a cautionary tale and a campus joke. After Jake was gone, campus life returned to normal. But the air between Sophie and me changed. She started seeking me out. She'd bring me coffee, ask to study together, and show up at my intramural basketball games like a devoted fan. She was doing exactly what I'd done when I was pining for her. The other students noticed. People started whispering that we were a perfect match. I played it cool. I stayed firmly in the friend zone. If she bought me coffee, I bought her lunch the next day. If she asked to study, I'd occasionally say I was too busy. I never initiated, never rejected, and never committed. I was the ultimate guy best friend. I enjoyed her kindness. I enjoyed the way her eyes lit up when I walked into a room, and I especially enjoyed the way she looked anxious whenever I seemed distant. I was stringing her along. I wanted her to see the prize, but never touch it. I wanted her to feel the agony of unrequited love. One night, after the final exam results were posted, Sophie called. She'd aced her tests and wanted to take me to dinner to thank me for the tutoring. I agreed. We went to a nice Italian place near campus. Dim lights, candles, the whole romantic setup. Sophie wore a beautiful dress and light makeup. She looked stunning. Ethan, a toast to you. She raised her wine glass. I couldn't have passed without you. Thank you for everything. Don't mention it. You did the work. We clinked glasses. After a couple of glasses of wine, Sophie's cheeks were flushed. She looked at me, finally gathering the courage for the question I'd been waiting for. Ethan, can we go back to the way things were? She asked softly, her eyes wide with hope and fear. I know I messed up. I didn't see Jake for who he was, and I hurt you. But I see it now. You're the one who's always been there for me. Will you? Give me another chance. There it was. The moment. I looked at her tearful face and felt absolutely nothing. In fact, I wanted to laugh. Go back. Why on earth would I do that? I set my glass down, leaned in slightly, and looked her in the eye. Sophie, aren't things great just the way they are? Sophie froze. We're best friends, aren't we? I continued, my smile warm and utterly heartless. The phrase best friends hit her like a physical blow. She went pale. It was the exact phrase she'd used to keep me at arm's length 1,000 times in the past. Every time she said it, it had been a knife to my heart. Now, I was handing it back. But, I love you, she choked out. Oh, I raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. You love me? But I've always just seen you as a friend. Ethan, please don't do this. She reached across the table to grab my hand. I pulled my hand back before she could touch me. I stood up, looking down at her, the warmth leaving my face. My eyes were as cold as a winter morning. Sophie, did you really think I'd just be waiting here whenever you decided to look back? Did you think the world revolved around your whims? When you chose Jake, when you fed off his guilt and enjoyed the attention while ignoring my pain, did you think about my feelings then? Now that he's gone, you want to come back to the backup plan? Why would I ever say yes to that? Every word was a shard of ice. She couldn't answer. She could only shake her head as the tears streamed down her face. No, it's not like that. Isn't it? I sneered. Save your tears, Sophie. In the last life, I cried enough for both of us. In this one, I don't have a single drop left for you. I pulled a few $20 bills from my wallet and dropped them on the table. Dinner's on me. Consider it the farewell meal for our pure friendship. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back as her sobbing filled the restaurant. The cold night air hit me, and for the first time in 2 lives, I felt like I could breathe. The weight of the past was gone. I didn't care about Sophie anymore. I didn't feel pity or regret. Some things once broken stay broken. Some wounds never heal. I pulled out my phone and blocked her on everything. A month later, I saw a notice on the department board. Sophie had applied for a study abroad program in London. She left as fast as the paperwork allowed, as if she were running from a ghost. 6 months after that, Jake was released from prison. I saw him once near the campus gates. He was a different person, hollow-eyed, silent, his spark gone. When he saw me, he just looked at the ground and hurried away as if avoiding a plague. His future was a dead end. And me? I moved on. I won a national scholarship, became the president of the debate society, and led our team to a regional championship. And there was someone new. Her name was Chloe Adams. She was on the debate team, bright, sunny, and incredibly sharp. She could argue me into a corner and then offer me a bottle of water with a grin. Being with her was easy. One night, after a victory party, Chloe walked me back to my dorm. Under the streetlights, she took my hand. Ethan, she said, her eyes shining, I really like you. I think we should be a thing. I looked at her honest face and smiled. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I asked, if my best friend suddenly confessed to you, what would you do? Chloe blinked, then thought about it seriously. I turned him down instantly. Why? Because I like you, she said as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. And if he were really your best friend, he wouldn't put you in a position where you had to choose. Real friends look out for each other. They don't play games. I stood there for a long time, silent. Then, I pulled her into a hug. Yeah, let's do it. Real love is respect. It's boundaries. It's being the first choice. It took me half a lifetime of pain to learn that. Sophie might take her whole life to understand it. But that wasn't my problem anymore. In the distance, the sycamore leaves turned gold and began to fall. A new life was just beginning. Story complete.